Hey guys, Leyvi here, back with another Albion Online beginner's guide. This time I'm going to help you prepare for your gathering journey. All the information I share with you in this video will set you up for the best start possible and the most efficiency moving forward. Gathering is as simple as putting on your gathering gear, taking your tools with you and going out to collect resources. However, I feel like before you even hit your first node, the very first thing you want to do is think about what you are about to do. Think about things such as, what gathering profession do you want to choose? Do you want to do the type of gathering that seems the most interesting or perhaps fun, or do you want to go for maximum profits? What is the most efficient way to go about gathering, and what kind of things do you need to know that might not be as obvious to someone that just starts out? There is quite some information you will benefit from before you even hit that first node, and that's exactly the type of information I will share with you. Personally, I'm not really into gathering and crafting in games. Within Albion Online, from time to time, I really do enjoy gathering a lot. It feels quite relaxing and it's very exciting to run into enchanted nodes, especially when it's a 0.2 or 0.3. At higher tiers, you literally feel like you hit the jackpot. Gathering feels like a break from everything else that's going on in Albion Online, and is a good way of making money and getting your economy going. I'll start with opening my Destiny board and showing you my levels in gathering. As you can see, I'm a miner and I gather ore. Tier 4 is at level 18, 5 is at 32, 6 at 61, 7 at 44 and tier 8 is at 36. Like I said before, I'm not a big gatherer, so my levels aren't anything crazy. But I'm not just showing you my levels for the sake of it. The first thing you should notice is that I only do one type of gathering. And that's what I suggest you do as well. The 5 different gathering professions which you can choose from in Albion Online are as follows. The harvester, which gathers cotton, the miner, which gathers ore, skinners gather hide, lumberjacks gather wood, and quarrier gather stone. You will notice there is a 6th one to the left, which is fishing, which I feel like is a completely different sport with very different mechanics and purposes, so we're leaving that one out. So why is it that I only do one type of gathering? This is because the more time you dedicate towards one type of gathering, the more efficient you will become. First of all, and most importantly, you unlock higher tiers. To give you an indication of the price differences, a tier 6 ore is about 700 silver, and a tier 8 is about 6000, which is almost 10 times as much. The most expensive resource right now is the 8.3 stone that costs 134,000 silver each. So higher tier resources have far more value, and because of this you want to jump from tier to tier as quick as possible. The second reason are the rewards you get for leveling the different tiers. If you look at my highest level, which is level 61 in tier 6 ore gathering, you can see the various bonuses I get. First up, I get a bonus to item power for all miner gear, which is a nice thing to have because as a gatherer you will deal with gankers, and having more item power in your gathering gear means more defensive stats, which might be the difference between living and dying. The second bonus is also an item power bonus to gathering gear, but for that specific tier only. The third bonus is to gathering yield, which is a bonus that multiplies the amount of resources you get per tick. So when you swing your axe at a tree and get 1 resource in return, it gets multiplied by your gathering yield. Every 100% in gathering yield makes for a guaranteed additional resource. At level 61 I'm getting a 31% bonus, and this is because every level provides half a percent. So at the max level of 100 you will get 50% gathering yield bonus. This bonus is for that specific tier of resource only, so you want to level the different tiers if you wish to become as efficient as possible. The fourth and final bonus we get from leveling is gathering speed, which is very useful to have because the faster you gather, the more you can gather. This bonus also means you stand still less at one specific spot whilst gathering, making you less vulnerable against gankers. Now we got the bonuses covered, I want to show you what else provides gathering yield, which is the third bonus we just went over. First up is gathering gear. The 3 pieces, helmet, armor and boots all provide a passive that stacks up over time, which increases your gathering yield. For this sole reason, you want to be in gathering gear whenever you gather. You will see there is one more piece of gathering gear, which is the backpack, which does not have this bonus. Instead, what it does is allow you to carry more resources. The Avalonian tools also have a passive that increases your gathering yield, and with that are yet another source of this bonus. Then there's food, specifically the pork pie, that also provides this bonus and even increases your load capacity, which is a really nice additional perk for gatherers. And finally, you will also see that Premium gives a 50% bonus to gathering yield. But Premium doesn't only benefit you with that as a gatherer. The 50% bonus also applies to gathering, meaning you will level your gathering much quicker. These two bonuses combined are plenty reason to get Premium if you are even slightly dedicated to gathering. So the 5 sources of gathering yield bonuses are your levels, gathering gear, Avalonian tools, food and Premium. Now that you know all of this, I think you might be pretty convinced why it's wise to stick to one gathering profession. So now it's time to decide which profession of gathering you want to dedicate yourself to. Amongst 5 gathering professions, 4 of them are identical in that you find the nodes, you interact with them, and as you swing your tools you get resources in return. One of the professions, however, has an extra step to it, which is the Skinner profession. If you decide to become a Skinner, you first have to kill monsters, and only after killing them can you gather. Now this additional effort does come with a very cool RNG feature, in that the monsters you kill often can drop cups. These cups can then be grown into mounts, and tend to be very expensive. So your first reasoning could be that you want to have this extra feature to gathering. A second reason, which is very valid as well, is because you think one of the gatherings is more fun than the other. Honestly, I personally think having fun is one of the most important things in gaming, therefore if you want to choose solely based on fun, you're doing pretty good. After all, you are going to spend a lot of time doing this, so why not have fun whilst doing so? A third one could be because your social environment needs a specific gathering profession. After all, Albion Online is a game that makes for a lot of community play. If you want to be a team player, you could also choose based on what's needed in your guild, alliance or group of friends. A fourth and final reason I will cover, which you can base your decision on, are profits. I went ahead and created an overview of what the flat resources cost of the various gathering professions. You will notice at tier 4 the cheapest resource is stone, costing only 52 silver each, whilst hide is almost 4 times that. However, as soon as you hit tier 6, wood becomes the cheapest resource and stone takes over, in which it becomes the most expensive one. And this actually stays like that for tier 7 and 8 as well. At tier 7 and 8, stone has more than double the value of anything else. So the decision is up to you. Do you want to make money quickly? If so, you might want to become a hide gatherer and start making money early on and pretty much stay average once you hit tier 6 and beyond. However, if you are alright with making less at tier 4 and want to make big bucks starting tier 6, you should go with stone. If I were to choose based on profits right now, I would definitely go with stone. I do suggest that if you watch this video later in time to create a new overview, as the values might have changed by then. Up to the next topic, which are learning points. Using learning points to advance your gathering profession to the next tier, meaning to unlock tier 5 when you are at tier 4 or tier 8 when you are at tier 7, is probably one of the best uses of learning points in the game. You already know why unlocking higher tier gathering is important by now, so this should pretty much be a no-brainer. If you are really dedicated to gathering, what you could also do is use your learning points to level tier 7 and 8 gathering every time it hits the 20% threshold. That being said, I wouldn't suggest using your learning points on the lower tiers. Let's talk about gear. When gathering, you will be a vulnerable target for gankers, since you don't have the means to fight back. Your sole tactic as a gatherer is to escape. That's why as a gatherer you want to equip yourself with as much defenses, utility and mobility as possible. Luckily in Albion you don't have to equip your gathering tool, so what you want to equip in your weapon slot instead is something with high mobility. The Blood Leather is the traditional gathering weapon which provides a dash on the W and E and even has a bit of mobility on the Q. Since the Blood Leather is a one-handed weapon, you can take an offhand, which I suggest you take Mist Color with to have lower cooldowns. As for your armor parts, you want to have gathering gear. This includes your helmet, armor and boots. Gathering gear has very good escape skills on them and as covered before provides gathering yield, which is a bonus you don't want to miss out on. Although there is a fourth gathering piece, which is the backpack, that provides a boost to how much resources you can carry, you typically don't want to gather in one since it leaves you very vulnerable. What you want to do instead is take a defensive cape, such as the Undead or Fort Sterling cape, to have a better chance at surviving gankers. This is of course different in the blue and yellow zone, where you don't have a risk of dying. Your bag as a gatherer is very important, so don't cheap out on it. The better your bag, the more resources you can carry, meaning you will have to do less frequent trips to your safe spot. For your food, you want to have pork pie, and make sure you always have extra with you, as you don't want it to run out and become overweight at any point. As for your potion, the go-to for gatherers is invisibility. Which leaves us with the mount. If you are just starting out and gathering in the blue and yellow zone, an ox is completely fine. However, as soon as you become vulnerable to ganks, which means gathering in the red and black zone, the ox is no longer an option. At this point, you have many other options, which each have their up and down sides. What you typically want on your mount is something with speed and carry weight. Some good options for starting gatherers are the giant stag, riding horse and armored horse. Once you get your economy going, you can look at more expensive options that will benefit you even more, such as the swamp dragon or salamander, wild boar, frost ram and combat mule. The slower your mount is, the more vulnerable you are against gankers. And if you have a mount that has little to no carry weight, you will have to drop off your resources more frequently. The general rule in Albion Online is that you shouldn't ever go out with anything you can't afford to lose. And this also applies to gathering, so make sure to always keep that in mind. If you want to make extra profits whilst gathering, one thing you can do, and I highly suggest, is bring journals with you. You can buy these from your laborers or from the market. Gathering journals fill up when you gather resources of the tier equal to that of the journal and 2 tiers above that. If you have a tier 5 gathering journal with you, all the resources you gather that are tier 5, 6 and 7 will contribute towards that journal. Another way to make extra profits as a gatherer is to add an additional step to being a gatherer, in which you refine the resources you have gathered with focus. This is of course if you don't use your focus for anything else. If I were to be a new player who is interested in gathering, I would definitely also refine my resources. This also means there is even more incentive to having premium as a gatherer. Now that you know all of this, you might be like, hey, I think it's about time I started gathering. So where exactly do you want to gather? On the Albion wiki you can see which type of zones have what type of resources. Each zone has 3 different resources, in which one is primary, meaning there is a lot of that resource. One is secondary, which there is still quite a bit of, and a tertiary, which I personally feel like you shouldn't even bother with, because there's very little of. If you click on a zone through your map, you will also see what resource you can gather there, and the tier of the resources, although it won't tell you what's primary, so for that you would need to look at the wiki. If you are a complete beginner, I strongly recommend you start off in the blue and yellow zone, so that you get a feel for it and then slowly advance towards the red and black zone. Alright, now for some tips. If you want to level your gathering as quick as possible, stick to gathering resources equal to or below the tier of your tool. Once you unlock a new tier, you can actually gather flat resources of the next tier, meaning you will be able to gather flat tier 5 resources with a tier 4 tool. However, this takes a very long time and basically isn't worth it. So stick to gathering resources that are equal to or below the tier of your tool. Make use of all the different places you can store your resources in. These can be rests in the black zone, hideouts, war camps, banks or whatever else you have access to. Perhaps go back at a later point with some friends who can protect you to get these resources back to town safely together. Always have your mount in close proximity so that you can mount up as soon as you sense any form of danger. You basically never want your mount to disappear from your screen, and even if it is there, you don't want it to be further away than a single click. You don't always have to gather in the type of zone where the resource you gather is primary. Since everyone else with the same profession will most likely be gathering there as well, most of the time the nodes will be depleted. In fact, what I used to do quite often was go to Highlands as a miner, which has ore as a secondary resource. The majority of the time I would have all the resources to myself, since most of the people were there for the stone. Now that was a lot of information, and I really hope it will help you with making your decisions and feel more prepared. If you have anything you wish to add about gathering on top of all this information, feel free to share it in the comments below. As always, I wish you good luck in your adventures, and I'll see you next time.